Hello viewers, let us discuss today the role of Panchayati Raj institutions in the implementation of the Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme. Now, it is important to understand that Panchayati Raj institutions have been considered to be effective drivers of rural development. Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme is considered to be a unique scheme in order to provide for not just rural employment but also to bring about rural asset creation as well as contribute to rural development in the long run. Now, in order to facilitate better understanding of this topic, let us divide the discussion into three broad areas. We'll start off with the significance of Panchayati Raj institutions in community development, then we'll focus on the main features of MGNREGS. And then finally move on to the effectiveness of Panchayati Raj institutions in the implementation of MGNREGS. Now, the Indian Constitution adopted in 1950 envisaged a federal structure with a central government and many state governments and union territories. Panchayati Raj institutions or local self-governments were a part of the structure, but they were not uniform, and the structure of Panchayati Raj institutions varied from one state to another state. However, with the enactment of the 73rd Constitution Amendment Act of 1992, there was a uniform structure of three-tier local self-government in rural areas. Now, these institutions of local government were entrusted with the responsibility of ensuring community development, at the same time aiding the process of rural development by taking upon the task of implementation of rural development projects. Thus, what we find is that village panchayats constitute the core of local self-development. This was also envisaged in Article 40 of the Indian Constitution, which is a part of the directive principle of state policy. Now, Article 40 envisages that the state shall take steps to organize village panchayats and endow them with such powers and authority as may be necessary to enable them to function as units of self-government. Based on this particular article, what we find is that in 1992 we have a landmark constitutional amendment giving a clear constitutional recognition and making it a constitutional imperative on the part of the states to institutionalize three-tier Panchayati Raj institutions in the country. Now, Panchayati Raj institutions have been involved in the program implementation and they constitute the core of decentralized development planning and their implementation. Now, Panchayati Raj institutions have been set up in order to translate Gandhian dream of village self-governance or Gram Swaraj and to become an important tool of rural development. Now, let us try to understand how the 73rd Constitution Amendment Act has actually aided the government of India in better implementation of development projects in the country. Now, we need to understand that the 11th schedule as well as the 5-year plans provided for better structuring of Panchayati Raj institutions, and the Panchayati Raj institutions have been given the responsibility of implementation of a number of rural development projects. Some of the projects that PRIs have been implementing are the Sampurna Gramin Rozgar Yojana, Swarna Jayanti Gram Sarojgar Yojana, Indira Awas Yojana, Samagra Awas Yojana, Tribal Area Development Program, Pradhan Mantri Gramodaya Yojana, Antodaya Anna Yojana, National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme, and many others. Though some of the names and nomenclatures of these programs have changed over the years, yet the core idea behind rural development is that state-sponsored projects should be implemented by Panchayati Raj institutions. Now, the 73rd Constitution Amendment Act provided that rural local self-government is the responsibility of the panchayats. Now, let us try to understand where MGNREGA fit in and how Panchayati Raj institutions and the Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme has been entwined in order to bring in two concerns. One, community participation, and two, local community development, aiding the process of overall national development. MGNREGA is considered to be the foundation of establishing local democracy. Why? Because we are implementing this act with the sole participation of the panchayats in the country. The act itself is empowering for local governance, and the provisions of the act strongly promote power decentralization to panchayats and villages. The act honors local knowledge and wisdom, and its operational structure is based on the principles of decentralized and participatory decision making. The provisions of decentralized planning and implementation processes embedded in MGNREGA have great power to establish the instruments of rural local governance and activate Gram Sabhas and Panchayati Raj institutions. Let us try to understand the major features of MGNREGA. The Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme was launched on 2nd February 2006. This act envisages securing the livelihood of people in rural areas by guaranteeing them 100 days of paid work in a financial year, and this act is exclusively for rural households. MGNREGA marks a paradigm shift from all earlier livelihood-based legislative enactments, because all the earlier enactments were based on a scheme. This is one scheme which gets its authenticity from an act. So, Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme is completely different from all earlier schemes, because this particular scheme of providing 100 days paid work is guaranteed through a legislative enactment, or we call it an act, which also means that this act provides a legal guarantee to work. Thus, it is a powerful legal entitlement. At the same time, it is also an opportunity to rural households to get guaranteed 100 days work in a particular financial year. Now, the next feature of this particular act is that it is a demand-driven program, conceptualized to create and enhance livelihood security for the most vulnerable segment of the rural population. Keeping the citizen at its center, planning takes place at all levels of government administration, starting from the bottom. Now, another very important feature of this act is that the Gram Panchayat is a pivotal body for planning and implementation of this particular scheme. In fact, Gram Panchayats are obliged to implement at least 50% of the work in terms of cost. When the Gram Panchayat is the implementing agency, all work shall be mandatorily sanctioned by the Gram Sabha. So this particular act brings in two very important institutions, Gram Sabha and the Gram Panchayat, and the logical guarantee is right to work for the rural population. It also provides for a number of legal entitlements to the rural workers through a series of provisions in the law, which is very interesting to note that it is also a guaranteed employment program, even if it is for 100 days. While the Act makes provision for 100 days work per rural household in a year, it is the strong legal framework of rights and entitlements. So please understand, this is not something given out as a dole by the central or the state government. Rather, this provides for a set of entitlements and rights for the workers working under the scheme. It is therefore essential to understand that the implementation of MGNREGA is read, understood and implemented keeping the entitlements of the workers in view. This is considered to be a landmark change in all the previous such programs of rural livelihood development. Now let us try to understand what are those entitlements. Entitlement 1. Right to a job card. Every rural household is entitled to a job card which contains the names and photographs of all adult members in the household so that they can apply for and receive work. Entitlement 2, right to demand and receive work within 15 days. The Act specifically says that every adult member of a registered household whose name appears in the job card shall be entitled to apply for unskilled manual work under the scheme, and every such application shall be compulsorily registered, issued a date of receipt, and which shall be entered in the IT system. Work shall be provided within 15 days from the date of registration of the demand for work or the date from which work has been demanded in case of advanced application, whichever is later. Entitlement 3, right to unemployment allowance, which is very unique. This Act says that if an applicant for employment under the scheme is not provided employment within 15 days of the receipt of his application seeking employment, he shall be entitled to a daily unemployment allowance in accordance with the terms of the Act. So now it becomes mandatory on the part of the Gram Panchayat to provide work. If they are not able to provide work within 15 days, they have to provide unemployment allowance for a daily period. Entitlement 4, right to plan and prepare a shelf of projects. All workers have a right to participate in the Gram Sabha and decide the work and the order of priority to be taken up under NREGA and the Panchayat. Now, which means that it's not just 100 days of unskilled manual work. The laborer or the worker will also have a right to decide on the projects that they will be taking up, as well as the shelf life of the projects. And if there are multiple projects, they have a right to say which project is to be prioritized and which project can be delayed. Entitlement 5, right to obtain work within a radius of 5 kilometers. The worker has to be allocated to a work site, preferably within 5 kilometers of his or her residence. If work is allocated to the worker beyond the 5 kilometer radius, the worker has the right to receive a travel allowance. Violation of any of these above provisions, the Act clearly says, will be considered as an offence under the Act, thereby attracting the provision of Section 25 of the Act, resulting in penal provisions for the implementing agencies. Now, what is the specific role of the panchayats in the implementation of NREGA? The Act formally declares in no uncertain terms that panchayats at all three levels are principal authorities for implementation of this particular act, and the implementation of the schemes made in this act shall be substantially guaranteed by the panchayats. That means the success of this act is also dependent on the Panchayati Raj institutions. Panchayats are more than instruments of implementation. They have an intrinsic values in realizing the expected outcome of enhanced livelihood. What is the implication? Now, an important provision of this act is asset creation. When a particular work is done under MGNREGA, it is considered to be an asset for that particular village or for that particular area. So that in the next few years, we create so much of asset that rural workers can get jobs from the assets that they have created, and they are not dependent on this 100 days work provided by the government. And in the long run, the act envisages that all the rural households will have guaranteed employed income. Now, in terms of implementing agencies, since we are stressing on the role of the panchayats, the implementing agency according to the act includes any department of the central government or a state government, a Zilla Parishad, panchayat at the intermediate level, gram panchayat or any local authority or government undertaking, or non-governmental organizations. So NGOs are also part of this, authorized by the central government to undertake the implementation of this particular scheme. At least 50% of the work in terms of cost shall be allotted to gram panchayats for implementation. The officer of a line department at the block level can also work as a program officer under MGNREGA. For enhanced participation of women in 100 days work, MGNREGA provides for special work to be allotted to women in rural households, and they have the right to receive 100 days entitled work. Another very unique feature of this act is the concept of social audit, which means that the entire program, the entire implementation of the work will be audited not by the state but by social institutions, organizations and NGOs. Section 17(1) of this act clearly provides that monitoring of the work within the gram panchayat by the gram sabha and the conduct of regular audits of all the projects is a compulsory provision under this particular act. The act further mandates that gram panchayat shall make available all relevant documents including vouchers, bills, muster rolls, measurement books, copies of sanctions to the gram sabha for the conducting of social audit. The gram panchayat is the custodian of all the shelf projects, and all the program officers who are working within the gram panchayat in the implementation of this particular scheme should duly incorporate all the information in the annual plan of the MGNREGA. Now, gram panchayat should also ensure that there are specific work provided for women and the nature of the job should be women friendly. It should also ensure that creches are provided to women who have children below 5 years. So the work also tries to provide a proper environment to work even though it is a 100 days work. Now, what are the specific roles and responsibility of the gram panchayat? Number 1, receiving applications for registration. Number 2, verifying registration applications. Number 3, registering households. 4, issuing job cards. 5, receiving applications for work. Issuing dated receipts for this work. The 7th one is allotting work within 15 days of the date of receipt of application. Next is conducting periodic surveys to assess demand for work. Where is the demand for work? And accordingly, shelf projects will be provided in that particular area. 9th is identification and planning of work, developing shelf of projects including determination of the order of priority of work. Executing work that shall meet the required technical standards and registration. At the same time, ensuring that all registers are maintained and kept up to date. The next important work of the Panchayati Raj institutions is maintaining an account record of all the money received and the money paid to the various stakeholders. preparing an annual report containing the various facts and figures and achieving various reports concerning the implementation of the scheme, and finally awareness generation and social mobilization. Another very important feature of this act, which also falls within the purview of the Gram Panchayat, is the organization of a Rozgar Divas. What is this Rozgar Divas? This Rozgar Divas is a festival which can be organized once a month to ensure that the Gram Panchayat will proactively invite applications for work. Basically, this is an awareness generation workshop conducted by the Gram Panchayat to invite application for work. Now, please understand this, that application for work is not limited to the Rozgar Divas. Applications are invited from rural households throughout the year, but it all depends on how many registrations come in and how much work is available in that particular area. Another important area of work for the Gram Panchayat is taking a proactive role in disclosing information in terms of ensuring complete transparency and aiding the process of good governance. All the Gram Panchayat offices and prominent public places should clearly mention the names of persons who have worked, days worked, and the amount received, which is a kind of an incentive for people to know that definite Gram Panchayats are organizing MGNREGA on a regular uniform basis, and the number of people who have got and received work as well have received payments under this particular scheme. In fact, not just telling about the job card holders and the type of work that they do, Gram Panchayats are also under an obligation to specifically state the kind of work that has happened in that particular financial year. It also provides for the fact that the national mobile monitoring system should be fully utilized in order to ensure that there is 100% transparency in implementation of this project. Now, what is the goal of MGNREGA? Why is there such a major role of Panchayati Raj institutions? The goal of MGNREGA are social protection for the most vulnerable people living in rural India by guaranteeing them a wage employment. Enhance livelihood security for the rural people through generation of wage employment every year. And please note that this generation of wage employment is for unskilled manual labor. Rejuvenate natural resources, create a durable and productive rural asset base, and finally, to ensure that the disadvantageous and marginalized segment of the society, especially the scheduled caste, the scheduled tribe, not to forget the women community members, are also empowered through this particular process. Not to forget the fact that this ultimate goal of MGNREGA is to deepen grassroots democracy and popularize local participation at the grassroots level. Now, we need to understand that how and why MGNREGA is a paradigm shift from all earlier projects. Number one, it is unique and different from other projects because this is a demand-driven wage employment program, and resource transfer from centers to states is based on the demand for employment in each state. So, demand will lead to engagement. MGNREGA is also unique and different because it is a bottom-up, people-centered, demand-driven, self-selecting and right-based program. Third, it provides a legal guarantee for wage employment by providing allowances, and if work cannot be provided, by providing compensation for failure to provide work on demand and if delays are made in providing wages. Plans and decisions regarding the nature and choice of the work are to be undertaken and decided in the work site itself. So it is not to be imposed by the central or the state government. It is the Gram Sabha which decides on the type of work that is to be done during that financial year. All information pertaining to MGNREGA is to be discussed openly in open forums of the Gram Sabha. This makes it so democratic and transparent also. Thus, MGNREGA marks a break from all erstwhile relief programs of the past towards an integrated natural resource management system, and it also brings about a livelihood generation perspective. It is mandatory for all state governments to conduct social audits to review utilization of funds. What can be deduced from this entire discussion? The MGNREGA was passed with two objectives. Number one, it ensured the legal right to work for 100 days to rural households. Whoever is willing to work as a minimum wage rate, particularly to reduce flow from rural to urban areas. Basically, instead of migrating to the cities, this particular scheme ensured rural livelihood security in the villages itself. The second objective and goal of this program was to provide an institutional machinery at the grassroots level which would be stabilized to address both short-term and long-term measures to eradicate poverty, facilitate rural development and promote social equity in consultation with the rural people. We should not forget the fact that MGNREGA has become a successful model wherein we find Gram Sabhas and Panchayati Raj institutions have played and have been playing an instrumental role in terms of furthering rural progress, development, catering to good governance measures, while not forgetting the fact that this is a rural livelihood employment generation program.